You are an electromagnetic machine traveling through time and space. You've got all these antennas popping out of you like you're some kind of porcupine mutant TV radio. Flatten those bad boys out, get your skin and eyes all smooth and silky, and now you've got the perfect disguise. You can wander across this planet, all beautiful and huggable, but still, underneath it all lies a hidden network of antennas, constantly picking up and sending out, extracting and emitting information, which in turn, depending on the frequency or intensity, changes the channel on the TV, the radio in your head. It changes what you perceive, what you feel, what you think, what you do. It literally flips you through different channels of reality. We all intuitively know and experience this. The channel that puts us into sleep, for example, displaying an inner world of flickering dreams and black screens, is very different from our ordinary waking life. Even while awake, we seem to be constantly teleporting between what could be completely different planets. The world we are in while at work or, for example, school looks and feels very different from the worlds we are in while with friends, family, or lovers. And those, yet again, billions and billions of kilometers away from the planet we are on when walking on the beach, wandering through the mountains, or sitting in a hot bath with the lights off and our eyes closed. We know there seem to be different kinds of channels to reality, that life does not stand still on a single plane. The metaphysical tide rises and lowers and moves us along with it, transforming our avatar, our actions, and the world we are in. However, it is not all random. There is a remote control, yet it seems so many of us have lost it or even forgotten it exists. Meanwhile, someone or something else seems to be running the show. Today is the beginning of a long hunt for that remote control and a browse through the first few pages of the TV guide, a peek at the most calming and healing channels included in your lifetime subscription to reality. Here it is, episode number 12, Brain Channel 1, Delta, GABA, Deep Sleep, and the Unconscious. The electricity that powers your brain and therefore powers your perception, thinking, feeling, and behavior is constantly fluctuating in level of frequency throughout the night and day. It goes from less than half a hertz on the low end to over 100 hertz on the high end. That's more than a 200-fold difference. It's as if you go from being 1 inch tall when you are deep asleep to over 17 feet tall when you are wide awake. Those are two totally different worlds and states of mind. Remember that movie, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids? How bugs became airplanes and lawnmowers became tornadoes? And then in the sequel, Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, when it was the complete opposite? Yeah, it's like that, which explains why the world of sleep feels like a completely different planet from the one we are on when we are awake. And even while awake and while asleep, we are constantly growing and shrinking in size. The electricity or energy inside of us gets louder and quieter, dimming down and brightening up. From our perspective, it seems like there is a whole universe inside of us, wide and vast. But from the super zoomed out God's eye view, it is just a tiny sliver of reality. Even when our brain is fully revved up and electrified to the max, like in deep focus study or rock climbing or skydiving, it is still running on less than 1% of the energy required for even the weakest of TV or radio channels. Still, this does not make us weak. Weirdly, it might make us stronger. Just as the Earth is in the Goldilocks, not too hot, not too cold zone, it appears that our brains too are in a sort of Goldilocks zone where the frequencies are Yes, very low, but just right for things like consciousness, language, thinking, and experiencing to arise. To more clearly visualize everything we will talk about in this episode, we first need to understand what a hertz is. In simple terms, hertz is a unit of measurement, expressing how many times something happens in 1 second, specifically how many waves travel across each second in time. So you can use it to measure, for example, sound waves, radio waves, or even ocean waves if you wanted to. Imagine you are looking out at the ocean of your mind and counting each wave as it passes by. This is not just a metaphor. Although we cannot see the waves of electricity within our brains, those waves do literally exist. We call them exactly what they are, brain waves. And like all waves, they can be measured in hertz. You can think of this like a drummer banging on a drum, banging on your head. Knock, knock, knock. If the drummer hits the drum once every second, then the frequency is 1 hertz. If the drummer hits the drum twice per second, that's 2 hertz, and so on and so forth. Similarly, if you're listening to a sound wave at, say, 400 hertz, that means the sound wave is vibrating 400 times per second. So hertz, just like meters or liters or Celsius or Fahrenheit, is a very useful tool for measuring and understanding things, and especially for visualizing invisible or intangible things such as brainwaves. It's also useful to not just count the number of beats in terms of hertz, but to further categorize those beat counts into broader genres or types of brainwaves. These types of brainwaves are like music or movie genres, but instead of telling us how the music sounds and feels or how the movie looks and feels, they tell us how we, in certain brain states or electromagnetic states, how all of that looks and feels. There are 5 general types or genres of brainwaves in ascending level of general beat count. They are delta, theta, alpha, beta, and gamma. These are the 5 main channels of reality that we humans constantly flip between, the 5 planets that we regularly teleport to. By understanding these, we can begin to understand why our mood, thinking, perception, and behavior fluctuate all the time, and sometimes even suddenly flip throughout the day and on the broader scale across our lives. So let's look at each of these classes of brainwaves. Let's explore each of these very different planets, study each of these TV channels, and also put a spotlight onto the various vehicles, tools, and buttons that allow us to more deliberately get there. Find that teleportation device or remote control that lets us consciously change our mood, change our perception, change our behavior, and everything else in our mental and physical landscape. Today, we will focus specifically on delta waves, and then in later coming episodes, we'll one by one examine the others. Delta waves are our slowest and lowest brain waves. These are in the 0.1 to 4 hertz range. Remember, that's anywhere between a tenth of a beat and 4 beats per second. Not drum beats or heartbeats, but you can think of them as brain beats. These are so low that we do not consciously experience them. We are alive, just barely alive, but unconscious. Yes, this is the electromagnetic planet we are on during deep sleep or anytime we are unconscious yet weirdly still somehow living. Everything is black, dark, silent, and cold. The water is still, the waves have settled. Space, time, self, and everything is frozen and invisible. Whoever and wherever you normally are, that all disappears, is temporarily gone, into the void, back to square one, a blank slate of nowhere, no one, nothingness. There is nothing to do or be or see here. All you can do is rest, relax, recover, and remember. Another pathway into the Delta world, aside from deep sleep, is deep meditation. But realistically, only the most experienced of meditators, like Buddhist monks, are going to be able to drop down that low, play that kind of limbo. Remember, this is a land of silence. stillness, and infinite spaciousness. Little to no mental or physical activity going on. Of course, for basic health and survival purposes, our bodies have been pre-programmed to automatically shut down and be put on sleep mode each night. Otherwise, give it 10 or 11 days and you would shut down forever. You would die from sleep deprivation. But to be able to temporarily shut down and recover in waking life, like through deep meditation, that takes serious practice and skill, a ninja-like taming and training of the body and mind to be able to sit still and be quiet, both physically and mentally. For most of us, that is very difficult, if not impossible. On the neurochemical level, this silent, gentle delta land is flooded with GABA. That's the super calming, relaxing, restorative, healing stuff. The off switch to your brain cells that stops all thinking, doing, and being. Your brain is pumped full of it when you're in the deep delta stage of sleep, but it also sometimes hangs out in the other higher brain states as well. It is categorized as an inhibitory neurotransmitter because it literally inhibits or shuts down the activity between neurons. Inhibitory neurotransmitters such as GABA are like the brakes in our car or the fans in your computer. GABA therefore allows the brain cells to finally stop, take a break, chill out, eyes closed, a restful retreat back into themselves, their turtle shells, to stop yapping away, laughing and screaming and horsing around with one another, and to instead, on this tiny microscopic cellular level, go to sleep or meditate, to spend some time alone, doing nothing, or at most float on their back in that calm inner ocean, or smell the crisp cold trees in the forest of the mind. It's a timeout or the end of the game. The players in your brain can stop running around kicking the ball to one another and instead rest and recover. Humans are not the only animals with GABA, GABA, GABA. It goes far back into our animal past and helps most animals calm down and relax. Certainly all mammals. GABA helps turn those big scary lions, tigers, and bears into cute, plushy, sleeping babies. Speaking of, babies are flooded in much more GABA than children or adults. This is true of human babies, but also many babies, definitely primates, probably most mammals, and possibly more. Yet the research has barely begun. We must wait for those brave explorers to come back across the frontier to find the answer to that question. How much is GABA just part of being an animal, and how much of it is being a human? And why does it even matter? It matters because the better we can understand the other creatures on this planet and how much they relate to and differ from us, the better we can understand ourselves. Regarding GABA in the animal world, I have a couple of theories. One is this: animals with bigger brains generally have more GABA. Since we do know that it plays a critical role in brain development, you would think that the animals with bigger brains would have more of it, and likewise, from the electromagnetic perspective, spend more time in those low-frequency delta states. That means dolphins, bats, and primates like humans, gorillas, and orangutans. Smaller-brained animals like birds and reptiles would have a little bit less GABA, though the special ones with slightly bigger brains, such as owls, hummingbirds, lizards, and turtles, would have more, and probably more human-like consciousness too. Also, remember, GABA is basically essential for deep sleep. So if my theory is correct, these bigger-brained animals should be spending more time in deep, slower wave sleep, and indeed they do. Of course, you have to take into account a lot of factors such as age, sex, and environmental conditions, but if you look across the animal kingdom, mammals, which in general have the biggest brains, spend the most time in deep delta wave sleep. That's the excellent premium stuff that accounts for roughly about 20% or 1 or 2 hours of our human beings' overall sleep each night. Of course, every person is going to be different, so don't freak out if you get less than that, but still feel great. Some people are naturally going to need more or less deep sleep. There are several factors that can influence this, and I will list a few of them here. 1. Age. The amount of deep sleep needed tends to decrease as we age, so babies and young children need the most deep sleep, while adults need less. The older you get, in general, the less you sleep. And specifically, you'll need and get less deep sleep. 2. Physical activity. The more physically active you are, especially at work, since that's where we unfortunately spend most of our time, the more deep sleep you will need. Gotta rebuild those muscles, recharge those cells somehow, right? Deep sleep isn't just for brain recovery and growth, it's for the entire body. Number 3, mental activity. People who engage in mentally demanding work or activities tend to need more deep sleep. Makes sense, you have to repair that brain and consolidate those memories. Yes, deep sleep is arguably essential for memory consolidation. I'll get into this a bit more later. Number 4, sleep debt. People who are chronically sleep deprived or didn't get much sleep the night before are going to need more deep sleep. I noticed this in myself from looking at my Fitbit data. On nights when I don't sleep a lot, assuming it's not because I'm too high on caffeine or slobbering drunk, wandering through bright neon-colored streets, but on those simple nights when I'm just tired and my overall hours slept are not a lot, the percentage of deep sleep is much higher than average on such nights. Clearly, the sleeping body has its priorities and knows that while all stages of sleep are, of course, essential, deep sleep is, from the growth and survival perspective, most essential. Therefore, your body, being the productive and responsible beast that it is, also schedules its tasks accordingly and will run those tasks like clockwork as long as you or your artificial environment don't get in the way. The first half of the night is dominated by deep sleep. It gets most of that out of the way first, just in case. You want to pay your rent and keep a little money left over for groceries before you go out partying and shopping and splurging on the less necessary things. Our waking conscious self might not always be a good, responsible boy, but our unconscious sleeping self always is. It's got its priorities in check, and like a machine, like an A+ schoolboy, like a good dog, good boy, it works through the night, doing what it needs to do, sequentially moving down that checklist to make sure that the airplane called you is repaired, fueled, and ready to take off and fly in the morning. That is, unless it gets interrupted, don't fill your cockpit up with coffee beans or let Humpty Dumpty play on the wings. No nacho cheese on the runway or champagne in the gas tank. Okay, number 5, genetics. Certain people are pre-wired for whatever reason to need more or less deep sleep. We were each born into a specific body and brain within a specific tribe of beasts, and each individual beast slumbers and moves in its own way. Some roll real deep, some just like to stay awake. Number 6, sleep disorders. Some sleep disorders, such as sleep apnea or restless leg syndrome, can disrupt the normal sleep cycle and thereby not allow one to get all the way into or stay in that later stage 3 level of sleep. Stage 3 is this deep delta wave sleep that we've been talking about. Although it's possible to fall directly into stage 3, usually you first pass through, even if briefly, the earlier 2 stages of lighter non-REM sleep. So if you keep waking up, it's like your arm keeps getting pulled out of the cereal box. You can never quite touch and reach the crummy floor at the bottom where the hidden treasure lies. And number 7, medications and substances. Certain things we put into our bodies, such as alcohol, caffeine, nicotine, and other stimulants, and some antidepressants and pharmaceutical drugs, disrupt our deep sleep. Once again, This doesn't mean that because you consume such substances or drugs, you need less deep sleep. But for whatever reason, it tricks your body into thinking it doesn't need it. It's all charged up and cannot shut down. You physically hacked your system to do what is unnatural, to be in a certain psychophysical state it normally, under natural circumstances, wouldn't be in. The stuff thrown into your internal river sort of overpowers the natural flow of things. The trash and rocks and poisons and things build up and block the water from being able to go home. It creates a sort of dam that stops the sweet magical waters from flowing where they want to flow, back to the calm mother ocean of night. That nasty beaver-like dam might provide you with other health, social, or work-related benefits, but sleep is not one of them. You gotta ask yourself, are these other things worth the trade-off? Quick recap. Humans generally, minus factors like these, need about 20% of their sleep to be deep. So if you're using a sleep tracker like a smartwatch, sleep mat, or Oura Ring, 15 to 20% is a decent target to shoot for. But don't freak out if you're not there. Look at the other factors in your life. And the real answer to whether you're getting enough quality sleep is, how do you feel and how do you function the next day? Of course, if you're always trapped in the swamp, you might think that's normal to be all icky and gunky like that. That you're living in a palace, but you're not. But you can probably remember certain days when you felt absolutely amazing. Let those be your benchmark, the palace you aim to wake up into each morning. Okay, so let's look at the rough numbers in terms of percentage of deep sleep for other animal species. I'm not going to pretend like we can put animals through precise calculators, so don't take these numbers too seriously, but they are interesting to think about. First, the mammals. Dogs spend about 10 to 12% of their slumber in that deep delta land. Cats, 15 to 20%. Great apes like orangutans, gorillas, and us, also 15 to 20%. Dolphins, 10 to 20%. Bats, 20 to 25%. Wow, now don't you feel like you've been put through a calculator? And while non-mammals such as reptiles, birds, fish, and insects seem not able to enter the exact delta frequency that we mammals can, that deep low channel of reality, most of those guys do still sleep, and quite deeply, in their own unique ways. Reptiles and birds, for example, undergo slow wave sleep, but it's not quite as slow or deep as our delta stage. It's not the most premium stuff for birds and maybe reptiles, but the jury's still out. It's more like our stage 2. Almost there, still very restful and rejuvenating, but they've not quite completely conked out by our spoiled human standards. Still, from within their own feathery, flying world, owls spend about 30% of their sleep time in deep sleep. Hummingbirds are strange. They have a unique sleep pattern in which only one hemisphere, one half of their brain, enters deep sleep at a time, while the other remains awake and alert and charged up. The two halves of the brain literally take turns standing guard, manning the flippity-flappity fort. Ducks, pigeons, dolphins, and whales work exactly this way too. They never fully enter and sink into and embrace that deep, completely unconscious state that we do each night. It's as if they're too worried or scared and must sleep with one eye open. Within the limits of how deep reptiles can go, lizards and turtles go pretty deep. Going deep! Chameleons spend about 40% of their time in their version of deep slow wave sleep. Turtles and crocodiles around 20 to 30%. Fish and insects with even smaller brains don't have anything we can confidently even call deep sleep. Their sleep is more like a deep rest. Never quite asleep in our sense of the term, but their heart rate, temperature, and breathing do drop. Several times throughout the day, they take time to chill out just like this, just floating there in the water, or making themselves a fish nest in the coral or rocks. Ouch! Ouchie nest! This bed is much too hard. Maybe that's why they can't sleep. they need a better bed. You can say that their version of sleep is like having your phone on battery data saving mode. For reptiles and birds, it's like your phone is on a semi-sleep mode, still turned on, sitting there with a blank screen in your pocket. Some apps and functions still running in the background, but at a reduced capacity. And for mammals, deep sleep is like your computer on actual sleep mode, a shutting down of most of its functions, a super low energy state, which then allows it to cool down, recharge, and restore itself. So just as different types of computers have different power-saving modes and mechanisms, different types of animals have different sleep states, ways of recharging. Plus, these animals aren't produced in factories, at least not most of them. Little boy, let me out of my cage. So no two animals are identical, and the world of wildlife is still very much covered in a foggy cloud of mystery that we are only beginning to peek through. Anyway, it's not completely clear whether bigger-brained animals have more delta wave states and more GABA. Still, the evidence is pointing in that direction. And of course, there's never a single cause or explanation to anything in life. That being said, if we can find certain patterns and overlay them on top of one another, that should help us understand anything, including the brain, more clearly. We should also expect animals to have higher levels of GABA and more delta waves at those times when their brains are growing the most. We see this in human babies, both inside and outside the womb. They're not in a delta state when they're awake, eyes wide open, shrieking, sucking, and smiling. Some of the GABA wears off then, obviously, but they spend a lot of their time asleep. In the first few months, up to 17 hours a day, about 50% of which is deep delta wave sleep. Then, as they get older, that number gradually drops. By age 1, it drops to 20 to 25%, but even elementary school age children generally sleep for 9 to 12 hours a night and spend more time in deep sleep than we adults do. None of us ever fully grow up, though. We all need to be a baby for at least a portion of the day. So if you sleep, say, 8 hours a night, I think it's fair to say that you are about 33% baby. Congratulations! You win a baby rattle and a pacifier. Don't cry! Go, okay. If we adjust those numbers to only include deep sleep, then that's more like 5 or 10%. You're a big boy now. But still, we all daily need to go to Delta daycare, whether we'd like to admit it or not. Sure, you'd like to be that big, productive, big boy businessman, but businessmen and presidents also need to get their brain diapers changed and to suck on those dark, flavorless, GABA-filled breasts. All mammals are tripping out in that low vibration land. We like it there, but for most mammal species, the babies like, or more specifically, need to trip out there the most. BYOB, bring your own baby bottles and nightlights. Goo goo gaga, baby want a nap. The best drug of all, the one that brings you back closest to where you are from, your original source, the home, the mother, the void, the non-living realm, death. We are scared to actually die, but we all love curling up next to its door each night. Babies just entered out from that door, so it makes sense that they don't want to let go just yet, to leave the home and to stray too far out into this big, scary, chaotic mess. Of course there are biological reasons too. Their brains are growing, and delta is the weather, GABA is the rain, and deep sleep is a land where we all grow best. For mammals too, let's take a numerical look through this zoo. Elephants in the first weeks of life sleep up to 18 hours per day, much of which is delta sleep. Rat babies, your favorite, spend about 80% of their sleep time in delta. Chimpanzee infants, oh, that's much better, spend, like human infants, about 50% of their sleep in delta. All of these numbers significantly drop, cracking at least in half as they get older and their brains mature. And if you look at a human baby or look at someone conked out, spitting out Z's, slobbering in the dark or on their desk, you notice they are calm, quiet, and not moving. There is no thought, no action, just being there, simply being, existing, the most basic, purest version of life available. More than a plant, but less than a man, the foamy place where ocean meets land. We sometimes need to get humbled down to lose our crown. Otherwise, our mind, ego, and the body would all explode. All the money and power and items and achievements will be useless and worthless. We need that internal thermostat to kick in the middle of the night to turn it all down. Force us to get off the merry-go-round and float off towards planet Delta, where babies roam like dinosaurs and the cold GABA raindrops fall silently on your overstuffed dome, to take that roller coaster and slow it down to a creaking stop. And this leads me to my second theory. Slower moving animals have more GABA. What's the logic there? Well, it seems intuitive given what we've already been talking about, how GABA is associated with deep sleep and unconsciousness, which is not moving. But to explain it a bit more, this is what I'm thinking. Remember, the neurochemical GABA inhibits neurons. It stops them from communicating and doing things. It literally turns off the action. And neurons aren't only in the brain. They are part of a larger nervous system that runs through the entire body, down your spinal cord, and all the way to the bottom of your feet. GABA receptors are like little keyholes on top of nerve cells, neurons. GABA, the shutdown key, fits into and then deactivates that cell, preventing it from acting and communicating in its normal manner. Turns down the electricity, puts it to bed. Those GABA receptors are found throughout the body. The highest concentrations are in the brain and the gastrointestinal tract, the second brain, but they're also scattered throughout the spinal cord, peripheral nerves, and many other organs. So if the nervous system, which includes the brain, spinal cord, and all those periphery nerves, is essential to movement, which it obviously is, the muscular and skeletal system, though also necessary, are not sufficient. Just look at a dead person. Don't look at a dead person. Look at a dead something. They've still got their bones and muscles, but they ain't moving. If the nervous system helps control movement, then a slowed down nervous system via GABA should mean slower movement. Let's look at turtles, the classic slow creature. They've got a lot of GABA. Humans, too, have more GABA, not only when they are deep asleep, but pretty much during any period of rest and relaxation. And it's not present when you are in an excited, aroused, highly active state. That's the other stuff, dopamine, norepinephrine, glutamate, and so on, which we're not going to get too much into today, except to say that when your body has these excitatory neurotransmitters like dopamine and norepinephrine and action-based hormones like adrenaline and cortisol in your system, you're not going to be slow and relaxed. You're going to be moving more, moving faster, both physically and mentally. GABA's in the opposite gang. It's going to slow you down, calm everything down, reduce that excitement, energy, and anxiety. Put the keys in those dark holes and start shutting things off, or at least turning down the volume and electricity, both mentally and physically. Slower bodily movements like the turtle, but also less thinking and analyzing and all that. Also, like a turtle, I should probably stop picking on the quiet, helpless little guy, or he might go call his teenage mutant cousins to come over here and kick my butt. I would actually love that, to meet my childhood heroes, even if it means me waking up with the imprint of a turtle shell on my chest and a rat's hairy sack in my face. But then I might freaking out, gagging on globs of sewer-soaked fur with extra cheese, turn to the right like a swimmer going up for air and see Leonardo's sword still lying there, and snatch it, swing it, and let those balls fall to beyond Delta Land, to the 0 Hertz range, the land of no return, 2 broken bells rolling down a hill and stopping at the bottom. Sometimes even heroes need to die, especially when they're getting worked up over just a little podcast. It's not even a big deal. Anyway, I'm not making fun of turtles. I had a pet turtle. His name is Leo. Ask my sister. She'll tell you. I'm down with the shells. I hide in mine a lot myself, chomping on romaine lettuce like I'm chopping fresh sheets of cash. I think it's cool to be slow, to close your eyes and grow, to spend some time barely alive, to dance in the ash and sleep in the snow. Enough about turtles. Let's talk about the slugs, the other slow pokes who get no hugs. In one study, researchers found that snails and slugs have GABA concentrations that are 10 to 20 times higher than those found in some other invertebrate species. And then there are birds and fish, which tend to be really fast. And what do you know it? They have less GABA and don't enter delta wave deep sleep. Just saying, but this is not science. Don't take this as fact, and it is not very well backed by data. It's a hypothesis that I like to explore, and of course, there are so many factors that go into an animal's speed. Is GABA one of these factors? Maybe. At the very least, this little tangent of mine will probably make it easier for you to remember the larger point. GABA calms you down, slows you down, turns down the volume, and stops certain neurons from firing. This is good for inhibiting certain unwanted actions or thoughts, reducing anxiety, relaxing you, putting you to sleep, and specifically putting you into that deep, smooth, delta wave sleep. That place where the brain has fewer than 4 beats per minute. So how can we enter super slow down unconscious space? We've talked about deep sleep and meditation, and these are going to be your go-to guides. Remember, behavioral tools are the best and should be your first choice. Before diving into lands of food, supplements, and drugs, let's first focus in on other behavioral tools we can use to, if not directly enter that deep delta state, what I'm calling channel 1, at least enhance or increase our ability to enter it. Light is one mechanism for entry. It alone is not going to teleport you to the delta world to move you into channel 1, but it can help. Specifically, morning sunlight exposure helps you sleep better at night. It's not clear whether it directly increases GABA or even deep sleep for that matter, but anything that is good for sleep in general is probably good for deep sleep, since that really is the central core stage of sleep. Also, we know that morning sunlight exposure helps ensure, all other factors aside, that your cortisol levels spike in the morning and go down by nightfall, at which point melatonin, the sleepy stuff, and GABA, the calming stuff, start to take over. Two things that are naturally low during the day, but should be high at night, especially around bedtime and when you are actually asleep. When the sun hits your skin and eyes in the morning, it tunes those hormonal and neurochemical clocks to a happy, natural place. Cortisol is the daytime action-based stuff that makes you awake and alert. It's the opposite, the antagonist of GABA and melatonin. While it's possible to have all three in your system at the same time, Mr. C is generally not friends with Miss G and Mrs. M. Any cortisol swimming through your body while you're laying in bed is ultimately going to make it more difficult for you to fall asleep and stay asleep. So overall, getting natural exposure to light, aka actual sunlight during the day, especially the morning, and avoiding artificial lights at night, keeping those circadian clocks running smoothly and in rhythm with the environment is likely going to help you have more deep sleep, to spend more time on planet Delta. There are also technological gadgets like light boxes and panels that emit bright light, which attempt to provide the same above-listed benefits that natural sunlight provides, thereby correcting your circadian rhythms, etc. You sit in front of them in the morning or early afternoon for 20 to 30 minutes, and that supposedly fixes you, increases your GABA, and improves your sleep, blah, blah, blah. But keep in mind, these are human-made tools. Use them with some caution and skepticism, and it's best to just get outdoors and get the real thing. These technologies probably work, are probably safe, but I'm not sure. If you have no other choice, like if you live too far up north or down south where the sun don't always shine, they might be especially worth looking into. There are also ways to hack your system with sound, and even some of the light boxes have speakers hooked up to them so that they can blast you with both visual and auditory magic, putting you into a relaxed, meditative, somewhat trance-like state. It's all about the frequencies. Low frequencies are going to help put you in low-frequency brain states. Remember, delta waves are less than 4 hertz for electromagnetic beats per second. So if sounds come into your ears and your brain perceives that frequency, boom, off to Never Never Land. You might have heard of a kind of music called binaural beats. It's instrumental, sort of meditative, ethereal, otherworldly sounding music. A lot of people, including myself, like to listen to that stuff when studying or writing. It helps stop you from overthinking, from using that overly analytical part of your brain, and instead begin to tap into the lower parts, the unconscious, where the free-flowing river of ideas and creativity can rise to the surface. It's like these binaural beats hypnotize you, putting you into a state similar to one you're in after just waking up or after closing your eyes before a sleep or deep meditation session. You're awake, but not quite all there. You're on a somewhat different planet. The brain TV channel has been changed ever so slightly. How does this all work? Well, binaural beats are a kind of auditory illusion. 2 different tones are played simultaneously, one in each ear. The brain perceives the difference in frequency between the 2 tones as a sort of third tone. If that third tone, the difference between the 2 tones is between about 0.5 and 4 hertz, that's a delta sound wave, and it's therefore going to help shift you into that relaxed, restorative delta state of consciousness. There are also binaural beats that produce higher frequencies and thereby put you into higher states of consciousness to, for example, help increase things like creativity, concentration, focus, and problem solving. But for today's purposes, we're talking about the delta wave binaural beats. You can listen to all of these on YouTube, and there are dedicated apps for them as well. I just now put on some delta waves while writing this, and the fingers slowed down, the head sank down to the table, the ideas stopped flowing. It was too much. I just wanted to sleep. So crank those binaural beats down to the ground if you want to relax as deeply as possible, like actually fall asleep. But if you want a bit more brain function, crank those frequencies up, find the sweet spot. The higher frequency, the more alert and focused it's going to make you, and the lower, the more relaxed and out you will be. This is true of not just functional music, but also what I like to call entertainment music, the stuff that normal people listen to. Certain kinds of music make us feel different. They put us into different moods or states of consciousness, teleport us to almost entirely different planets because, among other things, they contain different frequencies. You can guess which genres contain more low-range frequencies. Let's reveal the supposed answers. Number 1, electronic dance music, EDM, and other drum and bass heavy genres. These typically fall in the 20 to 150 hertz range. Next comes hip hop, for which bass and drum beats are also foundational. These instruments, drums and basses, produce low frequencies. Of course, there are a lot of different instruments playing in a song, and the song itself also changes from moment to moment and note to note and octave to octave. So we can't label a song as having one single frequency. That's crazy. And to generalize an entire category of music, even crazier. Still, on the topic of hip-hop, for example, the lower bass and sub-bass frequencies are generally between 20 and 150 hertz, like with EDM. But higher frequencies, all the way up to 2 kilohertz or 2000 hertz, are also part of the music. That's the vocals, the human voice. But rappers and hip-hop artists don't usually sing in very high-pitched voices. They want to sound more cool and calm. So in general, they stick to the lower mid-range frequencies between around 500 hertz and 1000 hertz. Now you see why I felt compelled to explain what a boring little hertz is in the beginning. It should all now be coming in handy. And if these numbers are still gobbledygook to you, that's okay. Just keep it simple. The higher the number, the higher the frequency. The more energy, the more action. And the lower the number, the lower the frequency. Less energy, less action, more calm, more relaxing. Rock music also has a lot of the same instruments as hip-hop, so it does have those lower frequencies, but you're also now throwing in a guitar or two. The acoustic guitar produces sounds in around the 82 to 880 hertz range, whereas a standard electric guitar, especially if you can get your fingers all the way down to that 16th fret on the thinnest string, that'll squeak that up to about 1200 hertz. Plus, rock songs generally have higher pitched vocals, so rock in general is going to wake you up and get you all excited even more. I'm not going to drive into every freaking genre, but as a quick summary, in the order of high frequency potential, next comes pop, and last comes classical music, because now you're throwing in all kinds of high-pitched instruments like tiny little flutes and violins and things. Anyway, I'm getting carried away. Today, we're focusing on delta waves, and normal entertainment music is not going to give you that. Quite the opposite, actually, and that's part of why I'm getting into all of this. If you want to drop into the delta level of reality, the only kind of music you're really going to be wanting to listen to is certain kinds of functional music, such as binaural beats in the 4 hertz or lower range, but silence is probably best. You could argue that vocalizations of certain animals also can trigger off delta waves in the human brain, specifically the sounds coming from the bigger animals. That's because big animal often equals low frequency, a bigger chamber for the sounds to bounce around in, and often longer vocal cords. Loosen up and relax those vocal cords or strings, and you can get even lower. Same with musical instruments. Cellos and pipe organs, big, long instruments, produce lower vibrations than violins and piccolos. Likewise, rhinoceroses, elephants, and whales can drop it lower than mice, mosquitoes, and Yorkies. Still, while the sounds of such animals can certainly help relax you and put you to sleep, whether they can put you into that super low delta state of deep sleep, I'm not sure. Probably not. You've also got to keep in mind that humans cannot actually perceive, in the form of sound, those frequencies lower than about 20 hertz. Everything is still entering us and affecting us. We just can't hear everything. It's like UV rays. We can't see them in the form of color, but they still are hitting us and causing lots of things like sunburns and the secretion of vitamin D and serotonin in us. So even with binaural beats, you're not consciously perceiving or hearing their low frequency effects, but on the deeper unconscious level, you are. The electricity in your brain slows down, whether you can see it or hear it or not. And so does your thinking, your body, and everything else. They tranquilize you in their own silent, invisible way. You could say the same about these animal sounds, except I don't think there are many animals that produce vocalizations below 4 hertz. Blue whales, for example, despite being the humongous instrument that they are, generally produce sounds in the 10 to 40 hertz range, right below and at the edge of human hearing. Super relaxing, can rock that baby inside of you asleep, extremely low compared with other animals, but still delta? No, not quite. Even some specially trained humans themselves can produce sounds as low as 20 hertz. An example that comes to mind is the Tuvan throat singers of Mongolia. Listen to those badasses on YouTube and you're gonna trip the F out. Transport you into the depths of the ocean, feel like you're riding on the smooth back of a baby blue whale, and blue whales aren't the only ones that like to drop down low. Humpbacks, for example, can drop down to 20 hertz. If you get out of the ocean and onto the land, you'll discover elephants, which can supposedly produce sounds as low as 1 hertz, rhinoceroses below 5 hertz. Yay! It seems we might have found the Delta Kings. These are super infrasonic, meaning below human perception, just like infrared light in the realm of vision is that which is also below human perception. Not important, just a fun fact, but the prefix infra just means below. The opposite would be ultra, which means above, beyond, or greater than. Hence, ultraviolet light, which is beyond violet. past the edge of human vision. And ultrasound, that stuff used in some medical technologies, are sounds beyond human hearing. An ultra marathon is a marathon longer than a normal marathon. And my explanation here is ultra overboard. Let's get back on track. It seems that maybe by listening to the sounds of elephants, rhinoceroses, and perhaps other animals, we can receive delta waves that thereby drop our brain frequency. I'm tempted to add in things like whale sounds, which might actually contain frequencies lower than we think, and humming sounds like those I mentioned about the Tuvan throat singers. Humming itself, even done by amateurs, normal people like us, even that, just normal humming, can get you down to those lower channels, which is perhaps why a lot of meditations and prayers involve chanting and humming. It literally relaxes you. This is one of the few scientific reasons why going to church or temple might actually be good for you, and part of why religious people live longer, like turtles grunting in their shells. Oh no, they're back. I said, purple paint running down the shelves. That was a close one. My body cannot take that kind of cowabunga pounding just quite yet again. Give me a few seconds at least. I'm still coughing up pepperoni-flavored hairballs. Anyway, I've been getting ultra delta, slipping into talking about the slightly higher frequencies because most of the sounds that we experience are way above that low, narrow range, and it's a struggle finding examples of things that can truly put you into that deep, unconscious state. Okay, we've talked about sleep, meditation, light, and sound, and sleep really is the crux of all of this. So to simplify this whole episode, if you only take one thing away from it, do anything that will improve your sleep, especially the depth or quality of your sleep. Those behaviors and foods and technologies, etc., are the true keys to opening up the door to the Delta world. So keep the room you sleep in dark, cold, and silent. Get some blackout curtains if you need to. Cover up the little lights. Unplug things. Remove little digital clocks and Wi-Fi routers, or tip them over or cover them up. Crank the temperature down to between 60 to 67 degrees Fahrenheit or 16 to 19 degrees Celsius. I know it sounds cold, but your body's going to love it. And turn off all the sound and shut up. Make it inviting to the spirits of Delta so that they can take you away through that door. Next, let's talk about nutrition. No food itself is going to suddenly snap you into unconsciousness. Well, I guess poisonous mushrooms and hemlock can, but we're not looking to die. We don't want to be trapped down there in the death zone and not be able to get back up. Still, get this, even at death, even after you're long dead, your body and brain never quite drop all the way down to 0 hertz. You keep vibrating, even if at a very low frequency. So are we ever truly dead? Or is death just a transition into a different channel, another frequency range, another world? Maybe heaven and hell, if they exist, which I'm not sure if they do. I think they probably don't. Maybe they are just channels inaccessible to us when we are alive. But just as real and part of this world, death is a form of infra-existence. Anyway, we don't want to die. It's nice to be able to continue to experience this wide range of reality channels that conscious living human beings are able to flip between. This electromagnetic buffet is amazing. We don't know what's on the other side beyond these colorful doors, but I'm not curious enough to find out just yet, and I'm guessing neither are you. So let's obviously avoid the foods that are going to completely knock us off our radio tower and focus on the ones that will help knock us out just enough. In general, though, you don't want to be eating anything in the 2 to 3 hour window before going to bed. Any food consumed in that general window is going to be being digested while you're asleep. That is going to cause your digestive system to steal away the blood and energy that should be going to other parts of your body, like your brain, to help heal and regenerate you during the night. And that movement inside of you, that processing of the food, is going to prevent you from being able to fall into deep sleep. If you eat close to bedtime, it's like inviting the cleanup crew or maids into the house to start vacuuming and junk in the middle of the night when you're trying to sleep. It's going to wake you up and in the end, just create a bigger mess because the next day, you'll be tired and lazy and reckless, spilling soda on the floor, leaving the door open, letting animals crap on and scratch up the couch. Just a bigger mess for the maids to clean up the following night. Bad strategy. Keep your house silent and still at night with not a creature stirring, not even a mouse. Definitely avoid high protein and high fat foods like meat and fish at night. Although the omega-3s in fatty fish do likely promote sleep, those benefits might be canceled out by the overall time it takes for your body to process those proteins and fats. Also, avoid spicy or other irritating foods for obvious reasons, and high fiber ones that produce too much gas like beans, onions, garlic, and cruciferous veggies such as broccoli. Your slumbering farts are going to blast you up into the atmosphere when where you want to be is laying down like a rock on the cold ocean floor of your body and mind. Contrary to common belief, it might actually be better to eat carbohydrates like rice or bread at night rather than early during the day if you're going to eat them at all. That's because they increase the tryptophan in your brain, where it then gets converted into serotonin, which calms you down, and then that serotonin gets further converted into melatonin, which knocks you out cold. Also, to connect this all back to light exposure, that serotonin to melatonin conversion is happening in a part of the brain called the pineal gland. Think of it like a town in the world of your brain, and that town is connected via a road to another little town that we talked about in episode number 7 called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the SCN. A bit of review here, but remember, the SCN gets activated when your eyes receive morning sunlight. That synchronizes your internal sleep-wake clock with the external environment, which helps you fall asleep once it gets dark outside. Part of what's going on there is the information from the light that travels through your eyes to the SCN, then travels further down the road to the pineal gland town where melatonin is produced. But the melatonin factory runs not just on light and dark. One of the raw necessary materials for its production is serotonin, and you can't get serotonin without tryptophan, just like you can't make bread without flour. And where do we get that tryptophan? Well, it's an amino acid, so not surprisingly, it's found in things like fish, nuts, seeds, eggs, and most famously, but not most abundantly, turkey. White meat in general contains tryptophan, so also chicken, but cacao and cheese too. Wait, wasn't this whole conversation about carbohydrates like bread? It seems now we're talking about proteins. Let's slow down, back up, and clear up the confusion. Certain proteins supply the tryptophan, and it's the sugar, the carbohydrates that help shuttle the tryptophan into the brain. The sugar increases insulin, which allows the tryptophan to get where it needs to go in order to transform into serotonin, the calming, relaxing stuff, and melatonin, the sleepy stuff. While carbohydrates do not themselves tend to contain tryptophan, they do facilitate the conversion of tryptophan into serotonin. I might be getting too much into the weeds here, but here's the takeaway. Despite what all the keto folks want you to believe, eating carbohydrates within a certain limit might not be so bad. They might at least help you sleep, and not getting enough of them might make getting to and staying asleep harder. This is precisely also part of the reason why you should not be eating carbohydrates at lunchtime, unless you want to fall asleep afterwards. The sleepiness you feel in the afternoon after lunch is of course partly natural. We do all get into a bit of an afternoon slump. We do naturally take naps. However, the extremeness of tiredness that a lot of us feel after lunch is also largely, though not exclusively, because of the often large carbohydrate content of that lunch. If you're going to use food as a tool and not just as a form of entertainment and pleasure, then from that functional or tool-based perspective, it's not very useful to eat carbohydrates early in the day, like for breakfast or lunch. Of course, each individual differs, but in general, carbs are going to make you sleepy. You're going to feel that crash. They're not going to help you become more focused, motivated, productive, or creative, which is what you probably want or need to be doing during the day. So, quick productivity hack: save the carbohydrates for when their sleep-inducing superpower is actually desirable and useful. Even better, eat those carbs in the late afternoon, early evening as part of your final meal in combination together with tryptophan-containing foods like fish, chicken, eggs, pumpkin seeds, or whatever. Kind of weird to put pumpkin seeds on your rice, but do what you do what feels good, forget about what is normal and accepted, care about, above all else, what is functional and effective. You don't have to eat carbohydrates and tryptophan-containing protein-rich foods at the same time, but it probably isn't going to hurt. And also, contrary to common belief, these tryptophan-containing foods on their own are not going to make you fall asleep. It's not the turkey on Thanksgiving that sings the lullabies to Uncle Jack and Little Susie. It's the turkey with all the stuffing and potatoes and everything else, namely the carbohydrates. And I'm not recommending gorging yourself like that on a regular basis. The lighter your nighttime meal, generally, the deeper your sleep. And what I was going to say is foods like nuts, seeds, fish, high protein, high fat stuff are great for lunch. I figured this out for myself, though you might be different. When I eat these kinds of lunches without the carbs, I can continue to focus deep into the afternoon while all of my colleagues are drooling, zombified, in a numb stupor with their eyes rolling into the back of their heads. What a waste of time and money for the company and society and meaning for our lives to be rendered useless for 4 or 5 hours a day or more. That's going to take a toll on your psyche and sleep and everything else, especially if the carb-induced tranquilizer causes you to go grab an afternoon coffee and keep the exhausted, broken merry-go-round spinning around even more. Okay, to sum up this long tryptophan, carbohydrate, serotonin, melatonin rant, try this. See if it works. Push your carbs to later in the day, but don't go overboard. And remember to also get that morning and afternoon sunlight, and set yourself a caffeine curfew at, say, around noon or so. Do that, and you will likely find yourself sleeping like a baby. I'm not going to get into all of the foods that can benefit sleep. That's a whole other episode or book. And plus, nutrition is not the primary or most effective pathway into deep sleep anyway. You really should be focusing on behavioral and environmental things like waking up and going to bed at the same time, keeping your room dark, keeping it cold, getting morning sun exposure, and so on. Still, to briefly finish up this conversation about food and sleep, other things that can help nutrients to consume during the day include omega-3s, magnesium, calcium, and vitamin D. This list is not exclusive, of course, and I'm not going to get into why these nutrients are important, at least not today. Just remember, in terms of food, your body needs certain inputs, i.e. nutrients, in order to perform the functions of falling and staying asleep, and it needs to not have other nutrients or compounds in its system, specifically those things that fire up your neurons and wake you up, putting you in outward-facing action, hunting, gathering, collection mode. So you don't want to be consuming things like spicy foods, gas-inducing foods, and drugs like alcohol and caffeine, especially at night. There are also certain supplements that can turn down the electrical activity in your body and brain. Things that increase neurotransmitters like GABA and allow you to drop into delta mode to wisp you away to that cold, sleepy planet. But however tempting and convenient it might be, these should not be your first resort. The long-term consequences might outweigh the immediate short-term benefits. This is true of many supplements, medications, and drugs. So only knock on this door after you've already tried knocking on the doors of your more friendly, gentle, trustworthy neighbors like Little Miss Sunshine, Mr. Meditate, and Old Man Darkness. Knocking on the pill master's door is like going trick-or-treating in a shady neighborhood, and it's not always a treat, especially once you zoom out. So another point about supplements in general is you don't want to take a bunch of new supplements all at once. That's a horrible idea. One, because they could potentially negatively interact with one another, and two, it makes it nearly impossible to know which ones are actually putting you into the mental and physical state that you want, that is good for you, and which ones are harming you, dragging you down. What you want to do, especially in the beginning when taking a new supplement, is isolate the variables. Start one at a time and keep it low, the minimum dose. You wouldn't eat a random plant out there in the forest thinking maybe it's edible. You wouldn't just gorge on a random bush of that. And certainly not gorge on a bunch of random bushes at the same time. That's foolish. You might die, or at least feel very, very bad. Likewise, you want to start with as little of a new supplement as possible and not mix it with a bunch of other new ones. See how you feel after that little bit of that one new thing. See how you react, and then up the dose, if that makes sense. Track the data qualitatively and quantitatively if possible, and go from there. But it's going to be really hard to track the data if you are adding in too many new variables at once and not controlling the quote-unquote experiment, because that's what it is. It's an experiment. It's going trick-or-treating in an unfamiliar, potentially dangerous, life-threatening neighborhood. One easy way to track the data quantitatively is use a sleep tracking device. See if taking the new supplement changes your sleep quality or duration, or check your heart rate. Qualitatively, you can check your energy and mood levels and overall behavior. How do you feel? What are you doing in the hours and days after taking this supplement? Both this soft data along with the hard data from the sleep tracking device, heart rate monitor, or blood tests, etc., can help inform you about whether you should keep taking the supplement, perhaps increase the dose, or whether you should decrease the dose or stop taking it altogether. That being said, the most famous supplement for conking you out and tumbling you down to level DELTA is melatonin. It might help you sleep. It does seem to help you fall asleep, but that external melatonin source does wear off in the middle of the night, and that can cause you to wake up and be unable to fall back asleep. It also, like many supplements, messes up your normal, natural production of the stuff. Since you can already so easily increase your melatonin through everything we've already discussed today, you shouldn't have much need to take extra melatonin in supplement form. Still, it can come in handy when, for example, traveling across time zones and you want to reduce jet lag, for example. It can serve functions in some emergency type situations, but even then, there are much safer, cheaper, and more efficient tools if you can get off your lazy butt. One supplement that does seem to work is magnesium threonate. There are many different forms of magnesium, and it appears that the threonate variety is especially useful for sleep. We need magnesium for hundreds and hundreds of bodily processes. Our body sucks it dry so quickly. It's one of the most common mineral deficiencies. And if your brain and body are missing even one essential mineral, that can mess up your sleep and many parts of your waking life too. Like a sports team missing a player in a certain position or missing a particular piece of equipment, that team is not going to be able to play right, probably not going to be able to win, and neither are you if you're missing one of your mineral players. And magnesium is a 500-time MVP. He is your Scottie Pippen, your David Robinson, definitely belongs in your starting lineup, certainly in the game of sleep. Low magnesium levels cause stress, high blood pressure, many things that are going to keep you awake. Adequate magnesium levels will increase your GABA levels, will calm you down, reduce electrical activity in your brain, turn you away from the exciting, stimulating outside world, and flip you into your internal one. A dark, cold, quiet, slowed down place where you can sleep and reunite with the unconscious. One warning here, too much magnesium can tickle your gastrointestinal tract, make you squirt out some sludge if you take just a little too much, so keep it light. Unless you want to clean up the butt barf off the sheets, it's okay and actually recommended to take it at night, even an hour before bedtime. There are also benefits to taking magnesium in the morning too, because as I mentioned, magnesium is a key player in a lot of biological processes. And despite how important this nutrient is, like we mentioned, you can have too much of a good thing. The body is all about equilibrium, being in a homeostatic state. Give the body what it needs, but don't go overboard. Don't go overstuffing it with things. Still, if you do mess up, the body does have some eject buttons in order to rebalance things. One emergency exit is located right between the cheeks on your face. Another is located between the cheeks above your legs. Oil spill on aisle 3. Thank you for flying, Air Magnesium. Theanine is another popular sleep supplement. It's a non-essential amino acid. It also calms you down. It's one of those things that you naturally find in tea, which is part of why, for example, green tea or black tea, despite having caffeine, make you feel more balanced and relaxed. The ride is a bit smoother than, say, with straight up caffeine coffee or an energy drink, but they even toss theanine into many energy drinks these days to smooth that ride out for you a bit, to stop you from being so jittery, etc., so that ultimately you will keep buying and consuming more to get back on the can of rocket fuel, spilling out cash in their pockets. And like with melatonin, theanine might help you fall asleep, but later on in the night, it can produce some unwanted side effects. Namely, in the case of theanine, it has been shown to increase the trippiness and vividness of dreams. If you like that kind of thing, give it a try. But when you wake up crying in the middle of the night, don't say, I didn't warn you. Apigenin is the last supplement I'm going to talk about. It's found in various plants and herbs, the most famous being chamomile. This is why chamomile tea makes you sleepy and why they put it in those so-called sleepy time teas. It also occurs naturally in celery, parsley, thyme, and oregano. So if you don't want to consume it in pill form, those are some natural alternatives. Apigenin is a natural sedative. It relaxes you, reduces anxiety, and can help put you to sleep. I'd say just drink the tea, not green tea. That has caffeine, which is going to keep you awake. Chamomile tea, but not too much and not too close to bedtime due to the water content that might wake you up to have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. Now let's talk about drugs, both the legal, socially acceptable ones that they keep peddling to you on TV, and the illegal, socially unacceptable ones that they sell you on the street, and some of those in between. This will be a pretty short list because most people don't want to go unconscious all the way down to that sub 4 hertz zone because there's nothing to do, think, experience, or be there. That does sound nice, like a big vacation from our ordinary overactive lives. And once you stay frozen in that state for a while and then rise up out of it, you feel great. You feel refreshed, rejuvenated, younger, more energized, healthier. Still, there isn't much of a trip or experience involved in it. Yes, you can dream during deep sleep, but your most vivid dreams and the ones you're most likely to remember will be a little higher up on the consciousness ladder in the REM, rapid eye movement sleep. Generally speaking, the delta channel or planet isn't experienced as anything. It's not a fun or interesting or pleasant or unpleasant place. It is, for the most part, non-experience, non-being, non-doing, non-thinking. It's like that nothingness of death you tried to imagine as a kid, but couldn't even imagine. That bugged me, tied my mind in knots. However close I got to conceptualizing death, there was always something, even if just black empty space getting in the way. And Delta is a place you cannot even remember ever going to, even though you do go there. You spend, or at least should be spending, an hour or two in that land of nothingness every night. Therefore, no one goes there for the experience itself, because there is no experience. We go there more out of necessity and for the afterglow effects that we experience upon waking up. Therefore, I cannot think of any recreational drugs that anyone uses, nor would want to use, nor should use to get into that kind of state. There might be something, but I couldn't find it, and that's probably good, because even if such a substance on the street exists, it is likely way too dangerous and certainly unpleasant to use. It sounds like just the kind of thing that could potentially kill you or trap you in some weird zombie vegetable fish-like state. It sounds scary, risky, not fun. If someone does make such a drug, they're probably better off trying to sell it to scarecrows and skeletons. We human beings would want our money back, and most likely our consciousness and lives back too. That being said, we humans do sometimes use drugs to dance close to Delta. We play on its front yard, ding-dong ditch it, and smell its flowers, but we don't dare actually go into that dark, haunted-looking house. The drugs I'm talking about here are ones that numb us, chill us out, relax us, sometimes a little bit, sometimes a lot, sometimes to a deathly degree. That all depends on the actual substance, because there are a lot of them, and also the dosage, among other things like your individual biology, etc. Some people do like to get numb, to turn off or turn down their thinking brain, erase their identity for at least a period of time, and just lay on a soft bed of bubbles or float in a frozen capsule through the air, just barely conscious and awake, alive, and able to remember it, but not quite all there, gradually shutting off the lights in their brain, the ones that make them human and their unique selves, and if they push it too far, maybe shutting off all the lights for good, dying, becoming that haunted house. These drugs are, for the most part, bad news. Get your GABA from behaviors and foods and perhaps supplements, and GABA is the chemical here that's turning off all the lights, helping you get into that kind of stupefied, zombified, drowsy, sleepwalking state, which is great for relaxation and sleep. Not so good when you're getting addicted, ruining your life, or overdosing, but it is ultimately your choice at the end of the day, especially if you're okay with the consequences. Okay, I don't want to make this episode too much about drugs, so I'll try to keep it quick. Here are some recreational and often illegal drugs that bring you there, that increase GABA, but usually not only GABA. The first I want to mention, because of its popularity, is alcohol. The GABA increase is part of why drinking can reduce anxiety and overthinking, reduce inhibition, rational judgment, muscular coordination, and even sensitivity to pain, which partly explains why you sometimes wake up with cuts and bruises, hopefully nothing more, but it didn't hurt. You hardly noticed it the night before. Technically, I guess that would be the endorphins, your body's natural opioids, reducing the pain, but this just further highlights what a crazy drug alcohol is. Of course, it's not that strange for one drug to increase both GABA and endorphins. In a way, these two neurochemicals are cousins or friends, frequently hanging out together, but alcohol also spikes your dopamine, adrenaline, glutamate, cortisol, and all of those other exciting outward-focused chemicals, bringing you out into the world, foraging and hunting for more, yet paradoxically, at the same time, also increasing GABA and serotonin, calming you down and tucking you into the bed of your inner world. It's no wonder you're so discombobulated and confused when drunk. Your brain is literally getting pulled in multiple opposite directions at the same time. There is nothing normal about alcohol. With enough of it, it makes us crazy, but it also makes us relaxed. And we like that part. But unless you're one of the lucky ones, you don't get to pick and choose. You must eat the entire package, the whole anti-multivitamin. That is or forfeit the entire thing, which is a pretty slick decision if you ask me. Another entirely different drug, but that is scarily similar in terms of its neurochemical effects and its effects on your behavior and cognition as a whole, is heroin. Arguably much, much more addictive, intense, and dangerous, and of course illegal, but it too cranks up the GABA, endorphins, serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. And there are a bunch of other opioid drugs that we all sadly now know too well about, like oxycodone and fentanyl. These caused a lot of deaths, especially in the West, which is sad, but makes sense because fentanyl is even more potent than heroin. Anyway, I don't know too much about these drugs, and nor do I really want to, so I will leave it at that. Just wanted to include them because they do increase GABA and drop you down a few, perhaps too many frequencies, float you off into outer space, leave you dancing out there in the dark, a frozen, invisible statue in the park, a little boy who just wanted to feel okay to stop the pain, but then came the rain, washing all existence away. Benzodiazepines like Valium and Xanax also increase GABA. They are used to treat things like severe insomnia or anxiety. And then there are barbiturates that used to commonly be used for similar purposes and also as a general anesthetic. General anesthetics. Yes. So we found a kind of drug that is deliberately used to render ourselves unconscious so that we can't feel the pain of waking life. When the pain is so extreme, like during surgery or other hardcore horror movie style medical procedures, we don't need to get into the nitty-gritty of the different drugs used as general anesthetics, but I've already cracked open this can, so let's drink it real quick. Barbiturates, which I mentioned a second ago, are less commonly used nowadays. They were popularly used in hospitals throughout the 1900s, but really reached their peak in the 1950s and 60s. But because of their highly addictive nature and the fact that other drugs with fewer negative side effects were coming onto the scene, they dropped out of favor by the 1970s. Who cares, right? Why are we talking about this? Yeah, just a few more sips, we're almost there. Let's finish this can of weirdness. You like weird, unmemorable, useless names, don't you? Of stuff that doctors use to induce delta waves, to teleport you into deep unconsciousness under those white sheets and bright lights. Here they are, you trivia hungry hippos. Get your pencils ready. You don't want to miss this, guys. Straight from the Delta Center, your starting lineup: sevoflurane, isoflurane, ketamine, etomidate, and your star, standing 0'0", propofol. Wow, exciting. That's got to be the most bitter, boring, useless drink we've ever had. Brain Shaman, sponsored by propofol. Hell no, that's never gonna happen. Brush your teeth while I now rip off my fake Halloween doctor costume and put on a black turtleneck. It's electronic technology time. We do, of course, have many non-electronic technologies that can put you into deep unconsciousness. For example, guns, hammers, cars, logs, dirt clods, and all kinds of mean, scary things, and tools that no sane person would use on themselves or another to change the channel on reality and teleport them to the Delta dimension. Most electronic technologies do the opposite. They turn on the electricity in your brain, wake us up, excite us, send us out into the noisy, colorful world where we chase, hunt, and collect more. Electronics often make us electronic. They pass their hot torch onto us, spreading their high frequencies into our being, firing up our neurons, remote controlling our bodies. In the modern world, due to things like never-endingly brighter and brighter electricity out there, there's more electricity in here, inside of us. Modern people are moving away from the Delta dimension, the land of unconsciousness, spaciousness, silence, and stopping, the low-frequency channel of deep sleep and non-doing, non-thinking, non-being. What kind of electronics is going to bring us there? perhaps a turned off VR headset or massage chair? A more effective strategy than searching in the haystack for that Delta technology is to look around and identify which technologies to avoid. And there are a lot, especially once night falls and the later and later it gets. You do not want bright lights or loud sounds. Anything that is going to excite you or put you in a heightened state of pleasure or fear, that's the daytime stuff. Keep it out of the bedroom. Stop polluting the calm river of night. This means music, especially the kind you like, that gets you feeling excited, inspired, motivated, and ready to go. This also means movies, especially the more stimulating ones like horror, action, thrillers, and true crime documentaries. This goes for podcasts too. Don't put anything into your eyes or ears or mouth that is going to keep you up unless you want to zoom past and skip, not to land on planet Delta tonight. Sometimes you need to skip it. You might have some urgent work to do, but D-Land will miss you and you will miss it. Its absence will permeate your mind and body the next day. You will feel like you are possessed by a dirty trash bag ghost. Smartphones, digital clocks, TVs, it's all gotta go. Nighty-night to electricity in your environment and brain. They can come back to play another day. Anything that's going to spike your excitatory chemicals like dopamine, adrenaline, glutamate, and cortisol, which make you excited and alert, are your daytime friends. Crazy guys that have pimp daddy suites, roller coasters, and jet skis, but who also play in dumpsters and suck on cheese. They live on a different plane of reality inside a different TV channel, and you do too when you invite them into your body and room. They are not allowed entry into the deep Delta world, the land of the unconscious. Like a popsicle in the sun, they would melt. Except they, dopamine, adrenaline, norepinephrine, they are the hot ones in the story, and their hotness often overpowers the cold. You are stuck sucking on that hot popsicle late into the night, up high in your rocket jet-fueled spaceship, probably cracking glow sticks and playing with big robot Barbies, leaving Delta down below in the dust, and waking up with a hangover, a popsicle stick stuck to your butt, all kinds of different goo everywhere, a pink chain attached to your feet, and white Barbie burp bubbles floating in the air, popping in your face. Break that chain, ditch that ship at night, or at least turn it off and park it somewhere safe and huddle up next to the turtles, gerbils, and catch some Z's and some D's. Deep D. DJ Delta up here in the night where we'd like to drop a little bit of house in the snow. Hey, rapper guy, out. Who let you in? Let the dogs out. No, out, just out. And take all of your junk with you. Clean up your freaking mess. It doesn't belong here. DJ Delta, man. I'm sorry you had to hear that. He's actually a really good guy. I found him on Craigslist, and he said he could help promote my podcast, and he's been crashing in my house for like 2 weeks now already. He said it's something about bird feed and music boxes, and I don't know. I guess it's a DJ businessman stuff that I can't really understand. I feel kind of bad, actually. I know he really likes singing, and he has some passion, and I should let him do that, but I don't know. He's a good guy, and we got drunk the other night on his dumb drink that he's obsessed with, and we were laughing and playing in the kitchen, and I told him he could be the first guest on my show. I thought that'd be pretty cool, and it sounded like a great idea at the time, but then I woke up and he just wants to sing and stuff all the time. He's got this supposed sick-ass plan where I do the episodes like I've been doing, and he'll come in and rap about it. I didn't tell him that he's not coming on, that I changed my mind. So I guess what happened just now is sort of my fault. He probably thought I would like that. He just popped in like that, took the initiative, and I did like it. I'm not going to lie. Those were some pretty sick rhymes. Not sure if he just busted those out on the spot or if he wrote them earlier. He must have wrote them earlier, because, like that part where he's like home and then a snow. How did he do that? I definitely can't come up with that kind of gold. But then I interrupted him because I freaked out. I didn't even know he was awake. He's been sleeping all freaking day. So I took that as a chance to finally, quietly, well, not so quietly, I was again, kind of into it, record this podcast because he keeps getting me drunk and making these bomb-ass burrito thingies stuffed with tortilla chips and Skittles, and I don't even know what else he puts in there. They're super good, but I can't get any work done after that. We just do more junk the next day. Anyway, today I finally tried and was almost done, and then he just popped out like that. I'm sorry, but what does he expect? I might let him do his thing later, but I don't know. I gotta think about it. Now my head's all spinning around. Gotta twist it back on straight. Crap, where were we? Okay, before we wrap it up, I want to do one last thing. We're done talking about behaviors, foods, drugs, pharmaceuticals, electronics, and all that. The gateways into Delta, or what I'm arbitrarily calling Channel 1. We've gone there. Now I want to finish up by discussing a couple of the benefits of this channel, dimension, level of reality, whatever you want to call it, the benefits of delta waves, and in most cases, that means the benefits of deep unconscious sleep. We've already mentioned some of the common sense benefits, like the fact that it's healing and restorative and balances out and optimizes your neurochemicals, hormones, etc., and thereby also, of course, balances out and cleans up your cognitive, mental, emotional, and physical state, allowing you to think, feel, and behave better the following day and weeks and months, especially if you keep the habit up. But I want to quickly dig into two more of the benefits to the Delta world, one of which I briefly mentioned earlier, and that is memory. In the low frequency delta wave state, you are not receiving or downloading any new information. That all happens in the higher frequencies, the higher up TV channels that we associate with conscious waking life. When we are awake and the electricity in our brains is all fired up, the lights in the house are all turned on, we can see things and experience things. There's higher fidelity, better graphics, more crispness and detail, a more data-dense, information-packed world that we are swimming through. And as we swim through and scan that 3D world with our eyes, ears, and other sense organs, take sort of pictures of the whole experience, or at least the parts that are worth remembering, the new updates that give us an upgraded, up-to-date understanding of ourselves and our environment. So the new information is coming in during the day through the perceivable world via experience, education, etc. We are downloading and installing the updates while the computer is still turned on and fully running. We take the pictures when the camera is on and there is proper lighting. Still, if you don't shut down the computer or put those pictures into the darkroom, it's just wasted, not fully processed noise. In order to complete the installation, to put that update into the computer's long-term memory so that you can keep it and actually use it. If you just keep taking pictures but never put them in the darkroom, there will be no lasting pictures. They won't fully process and will eventually just fade away and disappear. Here's something interesting. Guess what frequency a typical computer is in during sleep mode when you have it in sleep mode? About 1 to 3 hertz. Yep, delta waves. Well, the same frequency as delta waves, and when it's shut off, close to 0. It seems that across every aspect of reality, from trees to planets to computers to humans, the real long-lasting change gets solidified in the low delta-like states. Even seasonal change, cyclic changes in weather, temperature, etc., that all happens constantly at below 1 hertz. The environment itself is permeated by long, low-frequency delta-like waves that allow the physical world to change in the way it does. Delta waves are slow, deeply penetrating, and long-lasting, and so too is real change. Earthquakes and volcanic eruptions might appear fast and sudden, as if they came out of nowhere, but they are the firing back up of the computer, the waking up out of sleep mode, the calm, peaceful, unmoving land out there in the physical world and in your inner being was never completely dead. Not when you're asleep, and not in times of supposed stability and peace. There are always low-frequency vibrations running through it all, whether we can perceive them or not. Those deep, quiet vibrations, though invisible, are where all the real, long-lasting change occurs. We can become
fixated on the eruptions and fireworks, the kisses and orgasms, but the tiny engravings being etched onto the invisible wall down below while we are deep asleep, while the land stands still, those are what really create the world up here that we wake up into each day, that gets us excited and happy and sad and feeling alive. The tides change from the moon's sleepy waves. The earth cracks quietly from down below. If you don't put the popsicles in the freezer, they will melt. If you don't kick the kids out of the library at night, the librarian will never have time to put the books back on the shelf. We must shut down our computers, put our pictures in the dark to stop constantly snapping and running around. What a big, boring waste of time it seems to close down shop and go to sleep, but the next day, when you open that door and fire it all back up, you will have something new and long-lasting to hold. And these memories are more than popsicles, beyond simple pictures or books. They are what build your lens and operating system and AI assistant that help you navigate the world. They are your thoughts, feelings, perceptions, and actions. They are your memories that make you who you are and to do what you do. All that constant busyness and learning and running around that you do during the day is all for nothing, a big waste if you don't complete the final step by shutting down, dunking it all in the cold, gentle waters of Lake Delta, baptizing the new information deep under those waters, and then pulling it back up in a long-lasting protective coat called memory. That lake is shaped like a seahorse. Its nickname is Lake Hippocampus. It swallows new things up during the day, and at night, the waters become infused with baptismal magic, bubbling with GABA, providing those flimsy new things with legs to stand on, a strong, sturdy body that allows them to roam. All of the animals in that surrounding forest that are now deep asleep were originally flimsy, bodiless bits of fading nothingness, holograms flickering in and out until those misty waters sucked them up one night, gave them a blessing, brought them to life, gave them bones, muscles, and bodies and minds of their own. The lake needs the forest, and the forest the lake. All of your memories, those creatures that dance through your dreams and walk through your being, would never exist without that transformational night in the GABA-filled lake, unless you want your forest to die, to be full of only old, decaying animals from the distant past that are no longer adapted to this new environment. You must toss it all into those waters. Bathe both the new and the old, plants and animals, in there each night. Baptize them so they can update and grow and learn how to roam in this ever-changing new environment covered in rain, sunshine, and sometimes snow. Let the lake suck up the entire forest each night and then spit it back out anew each morning. The mommies, the brothers, the babies, it all. You get the point. Deep delta wave states, like those during deep sleep, are essential for forming long-term memories and actually learning. This ties directly into benefit number 2, and the last one I'll mention for today, creativity. Since creativity is all about taking existing memories and recombining them in meaningful new ways, then we cannot have creativity without delta-like states. One, because, like I just mentioned, we wouldn't be able to form new memories. There would be no quality materials from which to build something new. And 2, so many memories are tucked away in the unconscious, the deeper parts of our brain, inaccessible to us when in a higher conscious state, like when we're thinking and analyzing and being human. It is only when the lower frequencies kick back in that these memories re-emerge, and we can do anything with them.
It makes sense that most dreams occur during the sleep stage, right after deep sleep. It seems that during deep sleep, our unconscious memories rise up to the surface, fully there, but hard to see. But then we crank the electricity knob up, turn on some lights, we enter REM sleep, and those invisible phantoms from our unconscious that woke up during the prior stage, deep sleep, now become visible, and for at least a short time, they are alive. We can see the unconscious, ancient memories dancing with the new ones, and everything in between in fully immersive 3D for us to re-experience and see.
Perhaps dreams would not be possible without us already having gone through the archaeological process of deep sleep, or at least the dreams wouldn't be as interesting or enlightening or new. Part of what dreams reveal to us is our unconscious. They show us who we are and let us re-experience what we've been through. They are one of our rare gateways into this vast library of memories that control us, the unconscious. So if creativity is combining old things together in new ways, and the unconscious is the old toy chest with the best old things inside of it, delta waves are that frequency that softens up the dirt and allow us to excavate what's underneath. If we can find a way to keep those fossils and artifacts up above the surface, to keep them intact and visible through the noise of conscious life, then we've hit the jackpot. Delta waves open up the treasure chest within. Yes, it does close as we wake back up, but some of those things will inevitably escape out of that unconscious chest and re-enter the conscious realm. And if you write down your dreams or use other methods to pick up and collect those unconscious toys and treasures and re-release them into the conscious dimension, then you can become more like Picasso and Dostoevsky and Galileo and all the rest. Everyone has an inner artist inside of them, but the best paints and materials are locked in a chest. We must open that chest with the Delta magic, and then through physical force via the pen, brush, keyboard, or mouth, or musical instrument, transform those unconscious invisible relics into consciously visible matter that will change your world and your life. This same logic leads us to a bonus benefit: trauma release. What does trauma release or overcoming trauma have to do with delta waves, GABA, the unconscious, and deep sleep? I'm going to let you meditate on that, let you put that puzzle together yourself. More episodes coming soon on that topic, my favorite topic, trauma, because I'm a traumatized creature in a traumatized culture in a traumatized species on a traumatized planet. Woo! Let's all switch our brains onto Channel 1 tonight, where we can heal and rebuild our bodies, minds, and stories. Sucking on icicles, slipping into the unconscious, blowing on my back, sipping on GABA GABA. Delta Waves is not my first name. Family is Delta. My name is DJ. Up in this igloo, chillin' in my lonely bed. Hot girls and ouchie punches swimming through my slippy head. Riding the hippie-campy seahorse with my brothers. We hog, blow bubbles, merch back with mother. Brain shaman represent more like brain pimp. Got cotton candy hair and a fuzzy wuzzy crib. Big white bed, strong black curtains, no TV and an itty bitty fridge. But I cool with that, he a real cool cat. Hooking up the mellow tones and a place to live. Back in the days of Cranky Craig, we was crashing through alpha waves, tripping like zombies, always on the road. Now got my best bud Mikey and a microphone. This is my home every day and each and every episode. That is definitely not happening. Don't listen to him, whatever he's saying. He doesn't really know what he's talking about. And I'm not gonna just let him take over this podcast like he has my house. I'm planning on kicking DJ Delta out in the next week or two. I'm getting around to it. I'll get around to it. But it's kind of hard, you know? He's throwing out such positive vibes. Hard not to like the guy. Plus, he's got that knife thingy that he hides under the bed. Well, my bed, or at least used to be my bed. Anyway, I'm not really sure what to do with DJ Delta, and I'm not even sure if that's his real name. Actually, I'm starting to think that maybe he just made it up on the spot because he knew I was into that kind of stuff, you know? After listening to me talk about it for like an hour at the Greyhound bus station where I picked him up. Anyway, he's a really smart guy, big heart, kind of scary, but I guess he's my friend, sort of. I don't want to just toss him back out there, but he's got to go. Every once in a while, I call him up if he still has a phone and bring him on the show, let him sing a song for a minute or something, promote his CDs or whatever he's got. But what he wants to do, this is his plan. And I couldn't tell him exactly no yet because he was all excited and looking at me with his face. What he's planning is to be like a co-host and make this a super regular deal. He says we can easily crank it up to like one episode a day. We're just gonna talk about his ideas and mostly do songs and things like that. He thinks that will be super bomb. That's what he was saying, super bomb, while he was eating the last piece of pizza in his mouth. Anyway, this is my deal. Sorry to rant about it to you. If it takes another like 3 weeks for me to pop another one of these out, it's probably because we're chomping on Doritos and going out in the town with my money, obviously. Says he's going to pay me back double. Yeah, like that's even possible. Double. And do an episode every day on top of that. God, man, this guy. Anyway, I should be happy. The guy's, he's got ambition, and he's also teaching me a lot of cool tricks and things, and I have always wanted a friend, to be honest, and I've got a friend now. Even though he does seem to be a bit manipulative, and, crap, I gotta go. He's building some kind of weird, nasty-ass fort or something with the couch cushions. Peace out, doggies. Keep it chill in Delta Land. Get some deep sleep like DJ Delta. God, now I'm starting to talk like him and sound like him. Mikey, get over here. Get in my thing. Mikey, get on over here. Hey guys, I'll see you tomorrow. No, he's not gonna see you tomorrow. I'll see you when we can. Maybe in a couple weeks. I think. Okay, bye.